The true heiress possesses the uncanny ability to eavesdrop on my innermost thoughts. Thus she becomes aware of my wealthy brother's righteous indignation against evil and deliberately plunges into the pool, accusing me of having pushed her. She understands that my father is most concerned about his reputation, fabricating tales of being bullied by me, tearfully accepting an interview with the television station. She knows that my mother adores small animals and cruelly breaks the leg of a puppy by the roadside, slandering me for animal abuse. In the end, I find myself despised by all, meeting a tragic demise on the streets, while the true heiress stands over my lifeless body, grinning as she proclaims, "I possess extraordinary powers you cannot contend with me." Upon opening my eyes again, I find myself reborn on the very first day the true heiress returns home. This time, I shall adeptly utilize her unique abilities. 01. I have returned to the day when our entire family went to the police station to claim the true heiress, my brother frowning as he gazes at Chen, who saunters leisurely out of the police station. "This is my sister," he remarks disdainfully. As in my previous life, none of us respond to him, choosing instead to remain silent. Initially, we were all relieved to found our long-lost child, joyfully preparing to welcome Chen, the true heiress, back home. Little did we know that our first encounter would unfold in such a manner. Chen had entered the police station for bullying another girl, and my parents had expended considerable effort to reach a reconciliation. Her motivation was painfully simple. The boy she fancied preferred the other girl. What she cannot possess, she will not allow others to have. My brother, ever righteous in his disdain for evil, formed an exceedingly poor first impression of Chen. Thus, he turned on his heel and walked away. Yet a more heinous act from Chen was yet to follow. She swaggered towards the girl she had bullied, who trembled in fear yet felt too intimidated to retreat. In the next moment, Chen surreptitiously pressed down forcefully on the girl's wound repeatedly, a sinister smile curling at the corners of her lips as she leaned in and taunted, "Do you see clearly now? I am the true heiress. If you dare to cause trouble again, you shall see what awaits you." That smile is all too familiar to me. The image of myself lying in a pool of blood still haunts me. Chen stood over me, wearing that same grin. She declared, "I possess extraordinary powers you cannot contend with me." It was only before my death that I realized she could eavesdrop on my thoughts. Hence, she became aware of my brother's righteous indignation, leading him to intentionally leap into the pool, accusing me of having pushed him. She learned that my father was most concerned about his reputation, fabricating tales of being bullied by me, tearfully accepting an interview with the television station. She discovered that my mother adored small animals and, in a cruel twist, broke the leg of a puppy by the roadside, slandering me for animal abuse. Ultimately, I was loathed by all, and it was the thugs she summoned who brought about my demise in the streets. In my previous life, I perceived her as a victim of unfortunate circumstances, believing her harsh demeanor was the result of unjust treatment endured outside. Thus I never sought to retaliate against her hostility. Unbeknownst to me, my repeated concessions only emboldened Chen further. It was only before my death that I realized Chen was inherently malevolent to the core, harboring intentions to eliminate me from the moment she entered this household. The reason for her relentless targeting of me in her past life stemmed from an incident today when I, the false heiress, stood up for the girl she had bullied. As my parents were positioned further back, they failed to witness Chen actions. Everything was laid bare before my eyes from my vantage point at the front. Naturally, I could not abide by Chen behavior, and I immediately stepped forward to push her away. Chen lost her balance and fell to the ground. At that moment, I was blissfully unaware that this singular action would etch a deep-seated hatred for me in her heart. She narrowed her eyes, her gaze turning perilous as she remarked, "Chen, you audacious interloper, dare to flaunt yourself before me. Remember, you provoked me first." Upon hearing the approaching footsteps of my parents, her menacing expression was swiftly replaced by a facade of obedience. Later, she gleaned from my thoughts that my family held her in poor regard due to this incident, and thus concocted an excuse, tearfully explaining that her actions towards the girl were merely a response to long-term bullying endured at the girl's hands, and that she had acted in self-defense, only to be unjustly accused. My parents, along with my brother, fell for her deceitful words, allowing Chen to navigate her way out of a significant predicament, but this time, she would not enjoy such fortune. 02. In this new life, I still choose to stand up for this girl, but my approach is no longer as gentle as before. I firmly believe that, regardless of my actions, Chen character will inevitably lead her to harbor animosity towards me, setting her sights on me as her target. This time, I shall not yield. Since a fierce battle seems unavoidable, I am more than willing to engage with her. Observing Chen Qianqian's continued aggression, I swiftly approached her, taking 3 steps in 2, and raised my arm to deliver a resounding slap across her face. Smack! The crisp sound resonated, leaving a clear imprint upon Chen Qianqian's fair visage. She instinctively covered half of her face, her head snapping to the side. The injured girl was taken aback by my sudden action, reflexively covering her mouth, her eyes wide with fear akin to a startled bird as she gazed at Chen Qianqian. "You two vile wretches, I will annihilate you." Chen Qianqian, regaining her composure, immediately retaliated with fervor. Yet, just as her nails were about to claw at my face, a hand intercepted her, gripping her throat with a vice-like hold. My brother stepped in front of me, forcing Chen Qianqian to retreat in response to his movement. As she struggled against his grip, attempting futilely to pry his fingers apart, her efforts only tightened his hold. "If I see you causing trouble again, I will end you," my brother stated in a dispassionate tone. The warning caused Chen Qianqian's pupils to constrict in fear. Yet, overwhelmed by a sense of suffocation, she could do little but tilt her head back and gasp for air, her face rapidly flushing crimson. Hearing the commotion, our parents rushed over. It was only when they arrived that my brother disdainfully released his grip. Chen Qianqian, finally liberated, collapsed to the ground, coughing violently and gagging in her struggle to breathe. Our parents hurried to her side, offering concern and support. My brother, however, averted his gaze from the writhing figure on the ground and instead scrutinized the girl Chen Qianqian had bullied, issuing a command in an authoritative tone, "Come with me." With that, he pulled her into the car, as was his nature, unyielding and heartless. This demeanor extended even to me, his sister with whom he had spent many years, let alone to someone like Chen Qianqian, whom he had just met. After all, in my previous life, when Chen Qianqian had falsely accused me of pushing her into the water, Chen Cheng had treated me in a similar manner, if not more harshly. I relished the sight of Chen Qianqian in her current state. She was utterly exhausted, collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. If she found this level of discomfort unbearable, what would she do when this was merely the beginning? Just as my brother departed, I intentionally intercepted him. He stood beside me, and I knew he could see what I saw. I was acutely aware of his temperament. He would never turn a blind eye. Ah! Once she regained her composure, Chen Qianqian screamed in a fit of rage, venting her dissatisfaction in this manner. She ungratefully shrugged off our parents' supportive hands. Her shrill voice grated on my ears, causing me to arch an eyebrow in discomfort. I smirked, offering a well-meaning reminder. "Your brother is precisely this way. He cannot tolerate any insolence. So it would be prudent to refrain from such antics in the future." Upon hearing my words, Chen Qianqian looked up, the bruises on her neck starkly visible. She could not dare to express resentment towards my brother, and even if she did, she would not openly display it. Consequently, she would direct her grievances towards me, the easily manipulated faux daughter. As expected, in the next moment, our gazes met, and she glared at me with venomous intent, threatening, "Chinli, do not revel in your triumph. No matter your abilities, you shall never escape my scrutiny. I will not let you off easily." Her words dripped with confidence, akin to a predator that had locked onto its prey. Little did she know, I was aware of her ability to eavesdrop on my thoughts and intended to exploit her peculiar talent to my advantage. As for who the prey truly was, that remained to be seen. 03. In the days that followed, Chen Qianqian became markedly more subdued, a consequence of my brother's earlier lesson. Yet, I knew her mind was brimming with malice. Her current quietude was merely the calm before the storm. Upon returning home, much like in my previous life, Chen Qianqian began to masquerade as the obedient daughter, utilizing my thoughts to curry favor with everyone around. Thus, when it came time to celebrate my father's birthday, as Chen Qianqian pondered how to impress him, my thoughts resonated. What if I present him with a magnificent bouquet? This way, I could be the first to offer it to him at the birthday banquet and garner a wave of attention. Upon hearing my thoughts, Chen Qianqian's eyes widened in realization, and with a silent glare directed at me, she shamelessly appropriated my idea. She hastily gathered her belongings and rushed out to order flowers, boldly taunting me before leaving. "Chun-Li, do not even think about stealing the spotlight at Dad's birthday banquet. Prepare for embarrassment." At the last moment before the birthday celebration commenced, Chen Qianqian hurried in, bouquet in hand. Upon seeing that I too held a grand bouquet, her smile blossomed, and with newfound confidence, she brushed past me. I was jostled by her shoulder, stumbling back a few steps to regain my balance, nearly dropping the flowers I held. Chen Qianqian's urgency stemmed from her fear of being overshadowed by me. They say sharing an outfit isn't a problem, but when it comes to who looks better, the one who falters becomes the awkward one. Thus, when the host was still delivering the opening remarks, Chen Qianqian could hardly contain herself, rushing forward. I watched her retreating figure, a smirk playing on my lips. She rudely interrupted the host, forcefully shoving the bouquet into my father's arms. Thinking herself generous and poised, she proclaimed, "Dad, I have missed your birthdays in the past. But I assure you, I will be present for each one from now on. Happy birthday." She presumed that after such a declaration, even if she did not move my father to tears, at the very least, she would earn some goodwill in front of the gathered guests. To her astonishment, however, the very next moment, my father collapsed, clutching his chest, gasping for breath, with red spots appearing on the back of his hands. "What have you brought me?" he exclaimed in ire, flinging the bouquet Chen Qianqian had thrust into his hands away, sending it flying several meters. The flowers scattered across the floor, with the most eye-catching being the lilies among the decorations. My father was allergic to lilies, and since my arrival in this household, I had never witnessed the presence of lilies at any event related to him. Yet, in her eagerness to impress, Chen Qianqian had failed to ascertain this crucial detail. My father was a man who valued his reputation above all else. In my previous life, after the incident where I was falsely accused and bullied by Chen Qianqian, he had forcefully compelled me to admit my supposed wrongdoings before the media, demanding that I apologize to Chen Qianqian publicly. When I refused, he had struck me across the face. Now, Chen Qianqian had undoubtedly struck a nerve, as my father had spent days preparing for this birthday celebration. Thanks to her so-called surprise, he was now humiliated in front of friends, family, and business associates alike. I feigned surprise as I approached Chen Qianqian, embellishing my words. "What possessed you to present this to Dad? Are you not aware that he is allergic to lily pollen?" As I spoke, I still held the bouquet I had intended to give my father, a vibrant assortment devoid of any lilies. The stark contrast in thoughtfulness only served to deepen my father's already ashen expression. "You," faced with my inquiry and the scrutinizing gazes of the onlookers. Chen Qianqian's face flushed crimson. With the host's assistance, my father rose, having discarded Chen Qianqian's bouquet. He finally regained his composure. Noticing the unfavorable turn of events, Chen Qianqian quickly squeezed out a few tears, turning to feign remorse. "Dad, I didn't mean to." Her words lingered on the edge of her lips, only to be ruthlessly silenced by a harsh slap from our father. Unprepared, Chen Qianqian stumbled and fell at my feet, the impact resonating painfully even in my ears. "Father, enough. It's my birthday. Let us not make a scene," I interjected, stepping in as a peacemaker as the situation escalated. Chen Qianqian glared at me defiantly, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. With a disdainful snort, our father turned away, not sparing her a glance. "Leave now. You needn't attend any of my future birthdays." Chen Qianqian, taken aback, found it hard to believe. Yet what was so surprising? She had publicly slapped our father today. A man so proud would naturally seek to humiliate her in return. Ultimately, I returned to my place, swirling my wine glass as I watched Chen Qianqian continue her tantrum at the birthday party, refusing to leave. "I am your daughter. How can you allow an adopted daughter to remain while you dismiss your own flesh and blood? Have you lost your mind?" she shouted, her voice tinged with desperation. In the end, she had overestimated the significance of familial bonds in wealthy circles. Her tirade was futile, only serving to further embarrass our family. Yet, I found great amusement in her one-woman show. The more she raged, the more ridiculous her spectacle became, revealing her uncouth demeanor in front of everyone. Eventually, she was unceremoniously ejected by our father's bodyguards, his face dark with displeasure. At that moment, I savored the last sip of my drink, knowing that this incident had irreparably tarnished Chen Qianqian's image in our father's eyes. That evening, upon returning to my room, I was not surprised to find the chaos that lay before me. The precious garments in the wardrobe had been ruthlessly sliced into strips, the furniture overturned, and every item scattered across the floor. Glass shards mingled with a haphazard array of belongings, leaving no space to set foot. As I opened my phone, a message from Chen Qianqian appeared at the top. "Sister, I'm sorry for accidentally breaking your things. I'm at the swimming pool. Come find me, and I'll apologize." In my previous life, at our father's birthday celebration, Chen Qianqian had also departed early, only to wreak havoc in my room. When I discovered the mess, she lured me to a prearranged location under the guise of an apology, intending to frame me. Unbeknownst to me, It was the beginning of her deceitful scheme. Upon reaching her, before I could voice my outrage, she seized my hand and pulled me close. Then feigned drowning in the pool, flailing in a dramatic display that just so happened to be witnessed by my brother upon his return. "Brother, save me," she cried, thrashing about. Once she was pulled from the water, she sobbed profusely, accusing me of wrongdoing. I merely damaged some of Sister's belongings, and when I tried to apologize, she intentionally pushed me into the pool, claiming it was a means of compensation. I hurried to explain, but the cameras had already been tampered with by Chun Qianqian, and my brother had seen me push her. My protests were useless. No one would believe me. Chun Qianqian continued her performance. "Brother, please don't be angry. After all, I'm just a wild child who has wandered for years. It's normal for Sister to look down on me and bully me." My brother, filled with indignation, seized me and tossed me into the pool. "Since you enjoy pushing others into the water, you should experience it yourself." With a splash, the icy water engulfed me, and I flailed desperately at the surface, unable to find my footing below. I truly could not swim, forced to swallow the water that rushed into my mouth and nose. After my brother left, Chun Qianqian immediately dropped her pitiful facade, clapping her hands in delight. It wasn't until I was utterly exhausted that she graciously summoned someone to pull me out. I lay there limp. "I warned you not to provoke me," she sneered, tossing that remark over her shoulder as she turned to leave. Closing my phone, I chose to go to the location Chun Qianqian had designated. Like in my previous life, she stood casually at the edge of the pool, confidence radiating from her. Seeing her so self-assured made me smirk. If only she knew that all her schemes would ultimately serve to benefit someone else. I approached and stood before her. "Sister, are you feeling angry? There's even more fun to come," she teased, winking playfully and extending her hand toward me. At that moment, the sound of brakes from the back door echoed. My brother had arrived. I did not shy away. Instead, I grasped Chun Qianqian's arm and swiftly shifted our positions. She found herself in the spot I had just occupied, and I released her hand, allowing myself to plunge into the pool. "Chun-Li," my brother's voice called out just as I touched the water's surface. The water was as frigid as in my past life, and as I fell, it rushed into my mouth and nose. However, unlike my previous experience, I was quickly rescued by my brother's aides. Trembling, I wrapped myself in the towel he offered, preemptively pleading on Chun Qianqian's behalf. "Brother, please don't blame Qianqian. She was upset after being scolded by father today and sought to vent her frustrations on me. After all, she is the true daughter, while I am merely an adopted one." Before I could finish my sentence, Chun Qianqian seized my hair, her teeth gritted in fury. "How dare you frame me?" "Ah!" I cried out in pain, instinctively tugging at my own hair. Little did I know, this very action solidified her accusations against me. Just as she raised her arm to strike again, my brother seized her by the throat, compelling her to release her grip on me. Chun Qianqian looked at him, mouth agape, but before she could utter a word, he dragged her to the pool's edge. With his temper, he would offer her no chance to explain. He forcefully pressed her head down into the water. "I warned you last time. If there's a next time, I'll make you pay," he stated coldly, his words devoid of emotion, yet chilling to the bone. The last incident had already left a poor impression of her on him, and this time, his disdain was unmistakable. Chun Qianqian, held down, seemed on the verge of losing consciousness, desperately thrashing to break free. My brother judged the moment to be right and lifted her, only to push her back down again, repeating this several times before finally releasing her. Chun Qianqian emerged, gasping for breath, looking like a drowned rat, collapsing on the ground and coughing violently while clutching her throat. My brother paid her no mind, leaving without a backward glance. I stood up and kindly draped the towel over her shoulders. She attempted to resist, but she lacked the strength to do so, lying there panting heavily. I pinched her face, examining her closely. Her eyes, bloodshot with rage, glared at me as though she wished to consume me whole. Unfortunately for her, she lacked even the strength to stand, let alone fight back. "It seems you were right," I remarked, releasing her face with a mocking laugh. "It is indeed quite entertaining." The following morning, an unspoken agreement hung in the air as neither of us mentioned the previous day's events. Yet, Chun Qianqian's hands trembled even as she attempted to eat breakfast, likely a reflection of her pent-up frustration. Finally, she was tasting the bitterness of being at a loss for words. As Chun Qianqian prepared to board the vehicle to school, she forcefully slammed the door I had opened with her foot, leaning against it with an air of arrogance. "Chun-Li, I must admit I underestimated your cunning. From now on, I shall engage with you more seriously. Is that so? Then let us see what you are capable of, I replied, dismissing her with a swift kick that pushed her leg aside. Stung, Chen Xianxian stepped back, allowing me to enter the car without further ado. However, she chose not to join me for the ride to school, instead opting to exit her home alone with her backpack slung over her shoulder. The driver, taken aback, sought my confirmation, and upon my nod, he proceeded to drive away. As the first lesson neared its conclusion, Chen Xianxian finally made her tardy entrance. When the teacher inquired about her lateness, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and she bit her lip, appearing on the verge of tears. After persistent questioning from the teacher, she reluctantly revealed, "I'm sorry, teacher. I missed the family car and had to walk here. I'm not familiar with the route, which is why I was late." The teacher paused, momentarily taken aback, before awkwardly adjusting her oversized glasses and instructing Chen Xianxian to return to her seat. By this time, several classmates had begun to whisper amongst themselves, sensing something amiss. Aren't Chen Li and Chen Xianxian family? Why didn't they come together? Surely they had a car. It wouldn't come to her walking here. Indeed, and since Chen Xianxian is new to the school, she would surely have the driver take her, unless... Their conversation abruptly halted as they turned their collective gaze toward me. To my surprise, class monitor Li Hui approached me directly, loudly continuing their unfinished thoughts. Unless Chen Li is bullying Chen Xianxian, deliberately preventing her from using their family car, leading to her tardiness. Just as her words hung in the air, the bell signaling the end of class rang. "Say what you will," I replied, gathering my books and departing. Li Hui attempted to confront me, but was halted by Chen Xianxian, who softly interjected, "It's fine, monitor, I don't mind." Just like in my previous life, the pretense of being bullied by me had commenced. How amusing. I wondered if this incarnation of Chen Xianxian would show any growth. Over the ensuing month, Chen Xianxian consistently arrived late, albeit by varying degrees, all to ensure that everyone was thoroughly convinced of her victimhood at my hands. Her antics garnered the attention of the justice-seeking Li Hui, who befriended her. Li Hui would often confront me regarding Chen Xianxian's situation, yet I chose to remain unresponsive. Until one fateful day, when Chen Xianxian was locked in the equipment room, missing the opportunity to register for an international competition, and spent the afternoon in tears. I was the sole student selected to participate in the event. Whispers began circulating that I had deliberately locked Chen Xianxian in the equipment room to secure my own chance. It was obvious who was behind these rumors. Foolishly, Li Hui believed them, and in a fit of rage, she smashed my water cup, attempting to demand justice for Chen Xianxian. "You're just bullying Xianxian because she's soft-spoken and want to retaliate, right? Let me tell you, that's called bullying." I, taken aback, pushed her aside and kindly reminded her, "Breaking someone else's belongings incurs a cost. Don't forget to reimburse me." As I exited the classroom, I caught a glimpse of Chen Xianxian, her face streaked with tears, who discreetly flashed me a smirk when no one was watching. Many in the class, spurred on by Li Hui, began to harbor strong discontent toward me, even distancing themselves to protest my supposed actions against Chen Xianxian. It felt as though the final spark that would ignite my exposure by Chen Xianxian was imminent. During physical education class, only Chen Xianxian and I remained to tidy up the equipment. At last, her true colors emerged as she forcefully swatted the basketball from my hands, mocking, "So, how does it feel to be isolated by everyone?" She then burst into laughter and brandished a small blade she had prepared in advance. Frowning, I inquired, "What are you planning?" With gritted teeth, she drew the blade across her arm, instantly staining her fair skin with crimson. Seemingly dissatisfied, she slapped her own face twice, her disheveled hair sticking to her cheeks. Blood dripped uncontrollably onto the ground, yet Chen Xianxian appeared quite pleased with her handiwork. "Chen Li, just wait. Soon enough, you shall be utterly disgraced." I gazed at her bleeding arm, somewhat astonished, and remarked, "It seems you are quite ruthless with yourself." Mistaking my astonishment for fear, Chen Xianxian grew even more arrogant, declaring, "I told you long ago, you've picked the wrong opponent." She then staggered away from the playground, clutching her arm. After tidying up, I returned to class, where everyone regarded me with peculiar expressions. Feeling their collective gaze, I turned to Chen Xianxian, who sat at her desk with her wound bandaged, her face still swollen and adorned with glistening tears. As I prepared to take my seat, Li Hui kicked my chair away, crossing her arms defiantly. "Stop pretending. Xianxian has told us everything. This isn't your first instance of bullying her. If you dare act this way at school, I can only imagine how you behave at home. We've already contacted the press. Qianqian will make sure your misdeeds are exposed. While Li Hui stood up for Qianqian, the latter leaned against a classmate, cautiously observing me as if fearing retaliation. The incident escalated to the point where school authorities had to intervene. Given that our institution predominantly catered to the affluent, the emergence of such a scandal attracted numerous reporters. By the afternoon, my parents had also arrived at the school, their expressions pale and fraught with anger, understanding the repercussions this incident could have on our family business. When I was summoned to the teacher's office, I found it crowded with journalists. Li Hui sat beside Qianqian, who was tearfully recounting her experiences of being bullied by me. I initially thought I could endure it, but I simply could not bear it any longer, she lamented, pointing to her arm. This is the result of Chun-Li's dissatisfaction with me passing by her while carrying a basketball. Not only that, but she also slapped me while speaking. Such bullying has become commonplace. She frequently inflicts physical harm upon me. She proceeded to recount how I had ruthlessly forced her off the car, leaving her no choice but to walk to school, often arriving late. She claimed I deliberately locked her in the equipment room to seize her spot in the competition and frequently resorted to violence against her, leaving her with countless injuries. As she wept, the row of reporters eagerly typed away, desperate not to miss any detail, while those around me glared with indignation, casting accusatory looks in my direction. Upon concluding her tale, Qianqian sought verification from Li Hui regarding her claims. Hui knows all about this. Don't you agree? Qianqian expected Li Hui to promptly support her as before, but to her astonishment, Li Hui turned against her. Rising to her feet, she scoffed at Qianqian. You're quite the actress. Amid Qianqian's bewildered expression, I approached Li Hui, addressing the crowd. Do not be deceived by this fabricator. I shall now reveal the truth you all wish to know. I took Qianqian's phone, unlocked her face, and as she lunged to reclaim it, it was too late. I pulled up the daily taxi ride records. First, you claim to walk to school every day. What then do you make of these ride records? I, Qianqian, found myself at a loss and attempted once more to snatch the phone, only to be deftly evaded. I continued. The driver can attest that it is you who consistently refuses to take the ride, and your elaborate fabrications serve but one purpose, to slander me. The onlookers were taken aback by this unexpected turn of events, and the journalists' keyboards were poised to ignite with fervor. Li Hui produced a stack of exam papers, revealing Qianqian's abysmal performance, stating, as for the competition, Qianqian's grades are so poor that even if she were to register, she would not qualify. If anyone doubts this, they may peruse her academic record. Furthermore, it was not Chun-Li who locked her in the equipment room. As she spoke, Li Hui extracted evidence from her pocket. Qianqian found herself utterly unable to refute the claims. In truth, Li Hui had been my ally from the outset, and I had instructed her to feign friendship with Qianqian to gather evidence for the moment when Qianqian would attempt to set a trap for me. She presented 2 video clips. The first depicted Qianqian sneaking away from everyone into the equipment room, the door of which had remained wide open throughout. The second showed a scene from physical education class, where she slapped herself, inflicted wounds upon her own hands, and maniacally declared her intent to ruin my reputation. These recordings were captured by Li Hui herself. Once the videos were revealed, it became irrefutable that Qianqian's actions were solely aimed at defaming me, leaving the crowd enlightened. I unveiled an account that had originally circulated the rumor of my locking Qianqian in the equipment room to usurp her position. After thorough comparison, it was confirmed that the account belonged to Qianqian. Faced with this mountain of evidence, she had no opportunity for redemption. The trap she had engineered ultimately ensnared her instead. Yet the saga was far from over. A girl emerged from the crowd, declaring, moreover, I intend to expose Qianqian's past bullying at my former school. The very girl who had been victimized by Qianqian stepped forward, bravely recounting her misdeeds before the assembled media. Naturally, the journalists seized upon this story. At this juncture, Qianqian could no longer escape. Li Hui and I exited the office, leaving the battleground to them. This expose unfolded with numerous twists and turns, culminating in the very person who had initially clamored for exposure becoming the subject of it. My parents witnessed the entire ordeal and gained a clear understanding of Qianqian's true nature. Following the incident's dissemination online, she faced a torrent of public condemnation. Branded as a natural-born manipulator with delusions of persecution and histrionic personality disorder. I found this description quite fitting. Even the school, wary of its own reputation, expelled Qianqian. The company suffered negative repercussions as a result, prompting my father to erupt in fury, resolutely insisting on expelling her from our home. My brother echoed his sentiments in support. However, Chun Qianqian resisted leaving, frantically slapping herself before my parents in a desperate plea for sympathy, even as blood streamed from her nose. Ultimately, it was my mother who relented, pleading for her to remain. My mother became Chun Qianqian's sole hope of staying in the household, and she naturally employed every tactic to endear herself to her. Coincidentally, the following day, my mother returned home with a freshly groomed puppy from the pet shop. And Chun Qianqian hurriedly seized the opportunity to embrace it before my mother could. This action displeased my mother, who furrowed her brow and asked, "What are you doing?" The final spark before Chun Qianqian's departure was imminent. She seemed perplexed about how to curry favor with my mother, and my inner voice resonated. Mother detests small animals. Her feigned affection for dogs is merely for show. Upon hearing this inner monologue, Chun Qianqian appeared contemplative. At that moment, the pet shop owner kindly warned, "Madam Chun, recently the property management informed me that someone has been abusing stray dogs and cats in the neighborhood. It is likely someone nearby. Please keep an eye on your yuan bao to prevent it from wandering off." My mother responded affirmatively. However, once the owner departed, Chun Qianqian's demeanor turned ominous. She violently hurled Yuan Bao, a small teddy, to the ground. The poor creature yelped in pain, and to my shock, she followed up with a kick, sending Yuan Bao tumbling to my mother's feet. I was astounded by Chun Qianqian's actions. My intention had merely been to have her confess her disdain for animals, expressing thoughts contrary to my mother's in hopes of inciting her ire. I never anticipated that she would resort to physical violence against Yuan Bao. Yet, she subsequently uttered words that left me even more astounded. With a sycophantic gaze directed at my mother, her eyes glimmered with an unsettling light. "It turns out, Mother, we share the same interests. These creatures are utterly vexatious. Every time I hear their sounds, I long to eliminate them. No wonder we are mother and daughter." In my previous life, I had thought Chun Qianqian's cruelty towards the puppy was a scheme to ensnare me. I now realized this was a recurring pattern of hers. My mother opened her mouth, but could not produce a sound. In fact, I was responsible for those incidents in the neighborhood as well. I have to find an outlet for my frustrations. I gazed at Chun Qianqian in disbelief, while my mother could bear no more. Before she could finish her sentence, I seized the ashtray from the coffee table and hurled it at her feet, shattering the glass. "Perverted monster, shut your mouth." Chun Qianqian was startled, losing her balance and falling to the ground. My mother rushed to pick up Yuan Bao. I lunged at Chun Qianqian, delivering a flurry of kicks while berating her, until two bodyguards summoned by the housekeeper restrained me. My mother, seething with rage, pointed towards the door, declaring, "Get out. I will pretend you were never my daughter. I will pretend I never bore you. Never show your face in front of me again." Chun Qianqian, bruised and battered from my assault, was about to retort when my mother demanded her expulsion from the home. The composure she had maintained vanished, replaced by sheer panic. Losing my mother as support meant she would be severed from this family. She had clawed her way into a life of luxury, and now she faced the prospect of descending into poverty. Naturally, she resisted. "Mother, I am your biological daughter. You choose to keep something without blood ties and cast me out. How could you do this to me?" As she prepared to employ her usual tactic of feigning helplessness and kneeling for pity, my mother summoned the bodyguards to throw her out. "Leave. If you dare to appear within our sight again, I will show you the true methods of the affluent." These were my mother's final words to Chun Qianqian. At this moment, everyone saw her true colors. Following the exposure of her animal abuse, Chun Qianqian faced an even greater wave of online harassment. Her adoptive parents also disavowed her. I kept a vigilant eye on her whereabouts, for the vendetta for my previous life could not simply be forgotten. To my astonishment, before I could act, I received news of Chun Qianqian's demise. Desperate and cornered, she had sought refuge with her delinquent boyfriend. However, the photos circulating online revealed a familiar face, the very individual who had conspired with Chun Qianqian to orchestrate my demise in my previous life. After just half a month of cohabitation, Chun Qianqian found herself pregnant. Yet, she proved to be no fool. Unwilling to bear the child of her delinquent boyfriend, she insisted on terminating the pregnancy. Naturally, he vehemently opposed this, resulting in a fierce argument. In the ensuing chaos, Chun Qianqian was accidentally stabbed by her boyfriend and rushed to the hospital, where she was ultimately declared dead. Her boyfriend, terrified, fled the scene, only to be apprehended before he could even reach the train station. I closed my computer. To perish so effortlessly truly seems a boon for Chun Qianqian. However, my entanglement with her has reached its conclusion. Henceforth, I shall embark on my own journey. The tale has come to an end. Thank you for your attentive listening. If you enjoyed it, kindly consider subscribing and liking to show your support.
Until we meet again in the next story.